We're going to get started. We're late. We're 2 minutes late. I'm just going to bring him in. Here's Terry and Morgan. Woo, woo.
Hey!
What did I just watch?
Me
That last
hiding
story.
pineapple.
No. The last story in your cult news.
Yeah, have you not heard about that?
No.
Yeah, teacher set up a history assignment where people had to come in and role play as the
Oh God.
person in history. There's somebody in history. They were going to go as the Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan, and the teacher didn't send the pupil away, so the teacher got suspended.
Good.
Yeah, I mean, it's some people are saying, oh, that you should let the kid teach people things, and then other people are like, yeah, but no.
I think it depends. I think it depends on what the kid is saying. If the kid is explaining what the Ku Klux Klan is about, but obviously dressing like it, they could have the actual outfit there, because that is something that is visually representative of them. So to have that there, I understand, but I think it's the fact that they were dressing like it that's the issue. If they're talking it, because it's a factual. Unfortunately, it's a factual thing. That's what they do. That's what they believe. That kind of thing. But I think they went a little bit too far in dressing.
Look, you might be surprised. I was a boy in middle school once upon a time. So I know how these little shitheads think.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know more context outside of that news article.
That's right,
and a couple of others that I read, but I can't begin to imagine how you would feel if you knew what that person was responsible for.
Unbelievable.
With your ancestors, and then you see somebody, a peer of yours walking through the schoolyard, wearing that.
Would you let a kid walk through a school dressed up, be dressed up as Hitler in a Nazi uniform? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Although members of our royal family like to do that, or ex-members of the royal family, or however you want to address them.
They do.
Hello, Terry. Hello, Morgan. How are you both doing today?
Good.
Wonderful, thank you.
Stop myself from sneezing. I'm a bit hay fevery today, so I do apologise. I'm trying really hard.
You're hay fevery every single day, all the time.
I know. I'm trying really hard not to be like bloodshot eyed and snotty.
Who would like to give an introduction to Crimepedia?
Go ahead, Cherry.
I knew you were going to say that. So, hello everyone. My name is Cherry. I am one half. The other half is above. That's Morgan, and we have a podcast called Crimepedia, and it's a weekly podcast in which we discuss cases, unsolved cases mostly. And I tend to pick very, very old cases, and Morgan tends to pick newer cases, and usually we don't know which cases each other is going to talk about, so that the reactions we have are usually the same as the listener will have at the same time. So yeah, we don't script it. We try not to let each other in on stuff unless there's vital information you have to know about the case. We tend not to. So it's really good. The reactions you get are generally just general reactions.
How is it that you came to know one another?
We went in Vegas.
First time we ever met in Vegas.
Picked him up at a crabs table.
I had a podcast for a while with a good buddy of mine. It was terrible. It was terrible. No, it was called Captain and Morgan, and
that was fun.
Cherry used to wake up at like 2 a.m. to listen to us, because we started out doing it live.
Yeah.
Wow.
When we first started, so she would wake up like at ridiculous hours just to listen to me and Captain talk about nonsense.
Yeah.
And then eventually we started a friendship, and
now he pays me a lot of money to be his co-host.
Yeah, exactly.
What are you trying to say? Ain't nobody doing it for free?
No. No, I'm joking. No, yeah, we just decided to do it together. We both got similar interests in unsolved crimes. I was already doing my own podcast, and it's much easier with two of you because you can have a good discussion about stuff. So we found it a lot easier. We bounced off each other really well. So we thought, well, why don't we just do a podcast just us? So we did. And that's it.
I know
was
that
history.
Morgan does the bulk of the editing and everything, but it also must help with the workload if one of you is researching a case and presenting it to the other, as opposed to you both being part of that process every week.
Yeah, it sort of gives us a bit of a break. So, and also I'm a huge fan of true crime podcasts and learning about other cases and learning about the way that Americans do stuff different to the way English people do stuff. So for me, every other week, I'm getting my true crime fix of learning new stuff about the way Americans do things. And Morgan's really good because he does all sorts. He does like Canadian true crime, and we'll do it from all over the world. So it's really good that I also get my own personal fix of my true crime listening. I listen to a lot of true crime podcasts, whereas he doesn't. So it's kind of, it works really well for us.
Yep.
It's a great dynamic. And that's Crimepedia podcast on the cultvaultpodcast.com website. As I've been saying, there is a page that's dedicated to this stream. It has every guest's picture and bio and links to their things. So you can find the Crimepedia website through that link, or you can go and Google it or find Cherry and Morgan on social media. I actually have it here, so I'll just post it in the link now to the stream. So anybody that wants to go and check out Crimepedia. But before CrimeCon last year, in preparation for the event, I'd never been before. At that point, I'd really stopped digesting true crime media and focused a lot more on cults and coercive control by that point. So I thought in preparation for the event, I would go and check out all of the other content creators' shows and get acquainted with everybody that I knew I was going to be meeting, which included listening to an episode of Crimepedia ahead of our trip to Alcatraz on the first night, which was definitely an experience.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to listen to an episode that felt very culty. It had elements of being a very isolated family environment, and every time Morgan said something, I was like, oh wow, that sounds like, and then I really came to understand that family cults are a real thing. Family cults exist.
Yes.
And the Family Survival Trust that we are raising money for today intrinsically recognize that, which is something that they are trying to advocate for in UK legislation right now. Good. In expanding the coercive control to apply to groups and not just intimate partnerships and one-on-one relationships. So with that being said, and also with a special shout out to Samantha, who is here, who is your biggest fan ever, who has donated to the fundraiser today.
She's amazing. She's such an amazing woman. She's
Thank you so much, Samantha. That's so wonderful. And so excited to meet so many listeners at CrimeCon. And it's a shame Samantha can't be there, but hopefully one year. Brilliant. So, Morgan of Crimepedia podcast, I hand it over to you to tell us this story and to see what the listeners think.
Let me just start out by when I started researching this case and looking into this case, it really started out as simply a missing girl who had some strange family dynamics.
Yeah.
And then as I got into it and I started learning more about it, the whole story it started to evolve a little bit. And jumping on what you said about family cults, what makes this case scary, concerning, is the fact that these things happen and people live their lives and they come across these families and they have absolutely no idea of what's going on. And this one in particular, how long it went on is extremely troubling. So the case was the disappearance of Brittany Wood, who was a 19-year-old woman who disappeared in 2012. So the story goes, I'll give you a brief synopsis of her case. I'm not going to get into all the details. Brittany was I I don't want to call her troubled because I think there's a negative connotation to the word troubled. She had issues that she was dealing with in unconventional ways. So she had gotten into drugs. She was, I wouldn't say heavily, but she was using. She was a single mother of a 2-year-old.
She was only 19, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was
She
19.
was only young. She was a young girl.
She was very young. And in June 2012, she left her mother's house, told her she was going to go out and stay with a friend. Her mom watched her walk down the street, never saw her again. It turns out that she never went and met with a friend. She actually was picked up and was with her uncle. He was a man by the name of Donnie Holland. We know this because of cell phone records. They were able to ping her location to a home that Donnie was living in at that time. Eventually came out that, yes, Donnie had actually picked her up and took her back to his place. The day after Brittany was last seen, Uncle Donnie Holland, was found dead in his truck of an apparent suicide. So things are already kind of, something's not right here. Police ruled it a suicide. They were able to determine that he had used a gun that was owned by Brittany Wood. The family knew that Brittany always had that gun with her, that she always kept just 2 bullets in the gun and that there was 1 bullet left. And so they were like, okay, this makes sense. So this is Brittany's. But it has always been considered a suicide. Now, what people didn't know at the time of the suicide and Brittany's disappearance, this came out shortly later, was there was actually an active investigation going on in regards to Donnie Holland, as well as some other family members of this Wood family, where investigators were looking into basically child abuse, incest, sodomy. So the investigation had started roughly 4 months before all this happened. So Donnie Holland turned out to be the ringleader, is what people called him, of this child sex ring, child sex cult. And what was occurring was that the family members within this Wood family, as well as some select friends, were exchanging their kids to one another for sexual purposes. In addition to that, this is something that had been going on for at least 3 generations. So it wasn't just
that was a scary thing, wasn't it? This was generations, generation after generation of family members that were involved in this sort of family sex ring. Mm-hmm. Is the only way we can describe it.
Yeah. So not only was Brittany a victim of this, but Brittany's mother had been a victim herself, and her mother had been a victim. And so what was occurring was the family was normalizing this. This is what our family does. It's okay. This is normal. And they condition their kids to go through this process where they're being abused, and then eventually they become the abusers themselves. So, for a good example is Brittany's brother. So Brittany had an older brother who had been sexually abused as a youth. By the time he got into his upper teens, 18, 19 years old, where they have the ability to fight back and say no, they started to transition. Well, they did a transition period where they started to pay him to have sex with his cousins, young cousins, to have sex with uncles, aunts, whatever it might be. And they're transitioning him to take a role of being just an abuser. So it's a absolutely horrific story.
What's the socio-economic status of the Wood family? Are they like prominent, upstanding members of the community?
No. No.
This was
No.
exactly my question. Exactly my question in the episode that we did. I think the episode was from June 22, if you want to go and check it out. And this was exactly what I said. I said, like, what? I don't know Alabama very well. I don't
Mhm.
know the area. I don't know what sort of, communities there are there. And so I asked the same question. What kind of family are we talking about? And so the only way I could kind of describe it was I asked Morgan, are they like the kind of Brendan Dassey, they're kind of making a murderer? Are they that kind of family? Do they live secluded away from everybody else, or do they have neighbors? And Morgan said, like, no, they had neighbors. They were just normal people in the community. They weren't really, really poor, but then I don't think they were very high up in the chain of people economically.
Mhm.
But they did live in a way that they were able to seclude themselves off. They had multiple properties, and
Yeah.
so they were able to carry this out, and they didn't really bring outsiders into this isn't something that they groomed the children to then sell off or anything like that. This stayed within the family, which was really strange to me, because there's no monetary gain from that. There doesn't seem to be any reason why they're doing it, other than that they've just been conditioned to do this generation on generation, which was a really strange thing.
Yeah, but in the same note, what's interesting is how this Donnie Holland became the centerpiece of the current generation. I would say, right? How
Yeah.
he became the ringleader. So he married into the Wood family. He was not raised
No.
in that environment, so he married into it. So at some point, he got pulled into it, and he became the ringleader because he was the one that had the money. He was a drug dealer.
Yeah.
So he was the one that had the excess money. So when anyone in the family needed something, they went to Donnie. And so Donnie was the one that really controlled the money in the family and kind of controlled this whole ring.
And it was strange, wasn't it? Because there were so many of them. Like Donnie
Mhm.
Donnie married Wendy. Wendy
Yes.
had a twin sister. Then they had
Yes.
another sister, and then the brother-in-law is involved, and then the nephew is involved, and it's just like round and round in a circle. As soon as they become adults, they then become the abusers, and it all starts again. The next step, and it's yeah.
So there's not a particular element of individuals going out and earning money, and that money is all brought back into this insular environment. It doesn't seem to be a motivation in that sense.
No.
No, not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
It's such a bizarre case, and it is such an isolated group of
Yeah.
individuals. But as you said, Cherry, they're operating across various different households.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is it then that this woman has tried to leave this group with her child, and the repercussions of that are that she is no longer alive, or that she is just presumed missing?
We had this discussion, didn't we? And we
Yeah.
did say, because she had a 2-year-old daughter, and her partner's family were not a normal family, a normal loving family where there was none of this going on. And we had this discussion that would she just up and leave her daughter in a situation where she was going to then be groomed into being the next generation of abused children? Or is it more likely that she got into a situation with Donnie, ended up taking his life, and then took her daughter away from this, took her daughter and either gave her daughter to her partner's family, and then she disappeared to keep her daughter safe? Because from my point of view, when I was hearing about this, I said to Morgan, like, as a mum, if that's something that you're breaking away from, you are not going to leave your 2-year-old child in that situation.
Mm.
If you're breaking away and you know what's going on is wrong and you've had enough, it makes more sense that she would give the child to her boyfriend's family, who are not going to then go to police and say, hey, we've got the kid, she gave us the kid and she's now gone, because they want to have that child safe. So they're going to keep everything as quiet as they can, understandably. And personally, for me, because she was never found, I'm more inclined to believe that she disappeared. She got out of this family, this destructive situation she was in, and she's tried to break away and take her child with her.
Yeah, and there's a lot of indications that she was trying to to get out of it. She had spoken to investigators at least on one occasion, and leading up to her disappearance, investigators had been trying to get a hold of her.
Yeah.
They tried to contact her for a few times that week prior, and then we have the disappearance. Is it possible that Donnie had something to do with her disappearance? Yes.
Yes.
It's
of
absolutely
course.
possible.
Yeah.
And that would be a case of Donnie trying to preserve his whatever freedom he thinks he has left. But at this point, this is what's strange. I think at this point, Donnie knew it was coming. Everything was coming apart.
Well, the
it was
police were
not gonna
involved,
last.
weren't they? He knew
They
that
were.
they were going to be talking to her. So
Yeah.
he knew that there was a chance that they were going to blow this wide open and he was going to be spending time in jail.
Yeah. What's absolutely crazy to me is how this actually, the initial investigation into the sex abuse came about.
Yeah.
It was actually one of Brittany's uncles who reported.
Scott, wasn't it? Scott?
It was Scott. Yeah.
Scott.
Scott, that he actually reported to the police some texts that were sent between Donnie and a 13-year-old girl.
So he was actually an abuser, but he actually went to the police and told them that he had read these text messages between Donnie and a younger girl and shopped him to the police. So I couldn't get my head around that at the time when I said, like, oh, is he a victim? And Morgan was like, no, he's not a victim. He was also an abuser.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he might have been a victim,
at one
point.
Yeah.
But
at the point of this.
Yeah. And so then it's for him to come forward with this information. Yeah. And during the course of the investigation, he then said, yeah, I've abused children as well.
Yeah.
So it's something you would not have expected, because if it weren't for him, this would still be going on.
Yeah, that's right. They probably wouldn't know about it.
I wonder if the motivations behind going to the police rest in this Donnie figure being married into the family and not a core member of the family, and also being like a predator that's recognized this situation that he can enter into a position where he can have access to vulnerable individuals and exploit them, and whether some of the family members have been like, oh, you have no claim here because this is our system that we have set up, or whether they were like, oh, we don't want this random person marrying into our family because this is our family, so I'm going to try and get him arrested. There's so many different things that we could speculate on. But it's as you said, Morgan, really interesting to consider that this is a family that nobody had picked up on anything being illegal, perhaps. And all of a sudden, all of this information is coming out, which then makes you wonder how many of these environments and situations exist all around us that we just don't know about. There's been paedophile rings in the UK that have been generations of individuals filtered through these systems, and they've just gone undetected for so long, typically because perpetrators involved in those circles have held positions of power and influence where they've stopped it from, but this doesn't feel like that sort of thing.
No. With something like this, it's easy for a family to get away with it, because if you said, oh, my daughter's going to stay with her uncle and aunt this weekend, that's not at the normal. It's not unusual. So what they were doing, like passing kids around, you could just say, oh, well, they're just staying with with family for the weekend, and no one would bat an eye at it.
I suppose in the same sense, the brainwashing of the children starts at birth as well. So what you might see in typical cult-like religious groups where children are born in and thrown into an environment where they are taught the beliefs, they are taught the rights and wrongs, they are taught to not trust people that aren't inside the group, not to speak to individuals outside of the group. All of those things, those control measures, probably still apply in this situation.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It's just that the motivation is just to sexually abuse vulnerable children.
Yeah. And I think that was the kind of thing that shocked us in the beginning, is that this starts from such a young age. And so, like as in with religious cults, the children are taught the ways that they do things as a family, and the fact that the relationship that goes on between them is not a wrong relationship. That's what our family do, but that's not something that we talk about outside
Mhm.
of the family, because other people wouldn't understand. And I did watch I can't remember the name of the documentary, but I did watch a documentary about a family similar to this, where the adults of the family would tell the children that if you tell anybody about the kind of thing that happens in our family, they will take you away from us. And young children don't want to be away from their family, although what's going on isn't pleasant for them. They don't want to be taken away, and it's very easy to manipulate a child into thinking that if they say certain things, bad people are going to come and take them away.
Mhm.
And so
No.
it's exactly the same way
Yeah.
Yeah,
this
and
children.
then you get that you make them complicit in the crimes
Yeah,
by having them start abusing
and
their
then they can get in
younger.
trouble. That's right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So now it becomes a situation where it's like, okay, if you say anything or do
yeah,
anything,
you're gonna
then
get in trouble too.
you're going to get in trouble too. I do think it's Casey. You did bring up a point, especially when it comes to Donnie and some of these people that marry into it.
Yeah,
That I can't. I don't know how quickly they were brought into it, but just seeing like it seems like everyone that's married into the family has been a willing participant of
yeah,
this situation,
Right.
which is scary. Like, are they? I don't understand how someone could get married to someone and like your spouse go, hey, by the way, I want you to have sex with my 13-year-old niece, and then
yeah,
they say, yeah, sure, why not?
Yeah, it's not something that happens. It's not. It. We often, I say we. I've often said on this show that it's a very slow funneling into a certain belief system or practice. I remember when we arrived at the Church of Scientology building, Cherry, when we were at CrimeCon last year, and we were talking a
yeah,
little bit about Scientology. You don't go into that building and say, oh, hey, what are you all about? And they say, oh, we are all about Thetans and Xenu and all of these worlds. But it's a very slow, very, very slow filtering into that place.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it is predators and perpetrators who are very good at recognizing
yeah,
where they can exploit individuals, noticing this environment in a way that individuals on the outside wouldn't, and that's why it went so undetected for so long, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
that or whether it is another ring of people in communication with each other that we don't know about, like
Yes.
yeah.
websites or forums or clubs
There are so
or
many of those as well.
Yeah.
just
And we
random bars in a weird place where people talk
Yeah,
about things that they shouldn't be talking about.
yeah,
we do know that the family was involved in taking videos and pictures
yeah, and
of
distributing
this.
them.
And what's interesting about that is they actually had a when we say it's family, there were probably 3 people that are outside the family involved in this most recent generation. One of them was a woman. Uh,
Jennifer,
yes,
yeah,
Jennifer Gonzalez Moore,
more, yeah, that's
who
right.
at the time of Donnie's death, Donnie was actually living with her, and her job was I know that she did get charged with abuse, but
Yeah,
she was the person that was taking videos.
yeah,
She was there, she was taking the picture, she was taking the videos. So you get you get these situations and it's insane. And Samantha just says it. This is wild. It is absolutely wild that
yeah,
this happens, and the fact that you can get someone from the outside, a woman from the
yeah,
outside, and
yeah,
say, "Hey, we want you to participate, and we want you to be our videographer, whatever it might be," and then be
yeah.
willing.
And obviously with this Donny, I mean, there was a lot of like wife swapping, and a lot
Yes.
of like he was like sleeping with his wife's sister,
Yeah.
and things like
Brittany's
that. So I
mom.
mean, yeah, and so it was very everybody was sleeping with everybody in this. But it shocked me that a woman would have been recruited into this that was separate to the family, that would be the person that would document all of this and be okay with it. That was she didn't get sort of groomed into this from a young age. She was from outside of the family. That was strange to me.
And what's interesting is, like, I know we talk about Donnie being the ringleader, but Donnie had to have been recruited into this by someone, and it was his wife. So there's this interesting dynamic where, yes, in this family, I think the men kind of take the lead, but it's the women that kind of are leading and are pulling these men in to do this. And it's not a situation where it's just a man abusing the female relatives. The aunts, Chessie's mom, or Brittany's mom, Chessie, was involved in this as well. She was abusing children as well. So she was sleeping with Donnie, and then she was also.
Didn't she get like 100 years or something in the end? Was it her? That got
no,
that? She got 3.
She got like 3 years. Wendy, who is her sister. Wendy Wood.
That was
Kent,
Donnie's wife.
She got like 260 years
in prison,
and she still to this day says that she's innocent. She did nothing wrong.
What I think is interesting about what you've just said there in terms of not knowing how a person could be recruited in, it's very similar to what Cherry and I spoke about with Colin Sutton at CrimeCon in Scotland in September, around how Levi Belfield's girlfriends or female sexual partners never phoned the police on some of the treatment that he put them through in terms of I think this is such a horrible thing that Colin said, telling one woman to sit on a stool in the kitchen,
that's right,
and not move until he came back, and he was gone for like 12, 16 hours, and she'd wet herself and all sorts of horrible things because she wouldn't move. So when you think about the psychological prison that individuals are placed into, and the highly coercive nature of some of these individuals, when you say we don't understand how a woman could be brought in to film stuff and take pictures of things like willingly, we don't know where that comes from. And if Donnie is an individual who is putting himself forcibly onto children and other women separate to his wife or formal partner, you just don't know who Donnie really is and the types of things that he's doing to these people.
Mm-hmm. No, you're
Which
right.
I guess leads us to the other end of that case. Morgan, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add before we kind of leave that where it is.
It's, I just want to say, like, this one was a really, really hard one to do, because you don't like to think that something like this would happen in this day and age, in our world, right? But it does, and I guarantee you it's happening somewhere else.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's a hard situation to get yourself out of when it's your whole family, when it's your support system, your whole support system is involved in these abuses. So it's scary to think about.
It is. And I think what we can take from this conversation is not only are these environments around us, it's that we can be more aware of them by reading up on the definitions of coercive control and understanding the laws in our own areas around what can be done to prevent coercive control. So over here in the UK is actually in the Serious Crimes Act. So it is an offence to coercively control another individual. In this environment, I'm not sure how they would do it because it doesn't apply to groups, but there's so much sexual perpetration from one person onto another that I think even without coercive control, there'd be grounds for a case against every individual involved. And unfortunately, that would include those indoctrinated from a young age who went on to perpetrate others, which is a whole other thing and a slippery slope and a very lengthy discussion around how responsible that individual is.
Well, we know from cases that we've looked at, we know from looking at statistics that a lot of people that have been subject to abuse in their younger life go on to also inflict that kind of abuse on other people. We know that somebody who's doing amazing stuff for the whole coercive control movement is a woman called Laura Richards, and she is a former Scotland Yard detective. She is just a badass woman who is just kicking all of this stuff. I mean, she did a fantastic episode on Brian Laundrie and the way he had manipulated Gabby Petito and the way that he coerced her and controlled her, and the way when the police pulled them over, they kind of went to be that Brian was it Brian that was a victim because she was cross and she was upset, and Laura has been doing some fantastic stuff. She does also does a podcast with I forget his name, Jim Clementi. They do a podcast together and it's a brilliant podcast. So you need to sort of check her out and see what she's doing for coercive control, because she's really moving stuff in England really, really well.
Brilliant. That's a great shout out. You can find Laura on Instagram. I follow her on Instagram. She puts some great stuff out on Instagram. And what's great is that when there are changes in legislation around coercive control or recommendations from the Crown Prosecution Service, Laura's typically commenting on those things as well. So it kind of keeps you up to date and current. Which leads us to the end of that. I'll take the trigger warning off. I was listening to it and drawing all of these parallels between cases that we've heard. Like if you take the Children of God, for example, a group where children are being born, and then they reach a certain age, and then the adults all, share, to please God and lots of difficult things. Actually, I am speaking to Whisper and Jemima as the last panel of today, who are former children of God members who were born and raised into that group. So of the Butterflies and Bravery podcast.
You have had some amazing guests on today, and it's been really interesting to hear some stories from sort of people that were born into different groups and it's been fascinating to hear their stories and how they've overcome things that they have been born into. So well done you. It's been absolutely brilliant today. You've done a great job.
Thanks, Cherry. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll say this just to kind of wrap up. I know we kind of got away from Brittany a little bit, but with Brittany, I like to imagine that she is still out there and that she's living her best life. She was at the age where she was going to be transitioned from being a abuser or being abused to being abuser. And her daughter, she had just turned 2 just a few weeks prior to her disappearance, was at that age where grooming probably had already begun and that abuse was going to happen. So I like to imagine that Brittany just said, no, I'm not doing this, and it's not going to happen to my daughter.
Yeah. So. Maybe one day we'll know, but maybe we don't need to know. If that is if it's the way that you just said, Morgan, then I don't know that we need to know. So what I wanted to also talk about, because we've got a little while left of our session, I just wanted to talk about next weekend. I'm so excited.
Oh yes.
And also about how Cherry knows everybody in the crime field.
She does. It's amazing.
You can't go anywhere with Cherry. You're like walking around CrimeCon and she's this used to happen in my small town. I'd go to the supermarket with my dad and he just knew everybody, and it would take like half an hour to buy a loaf of bread because he'd just be stopping and oh, you're right, mate. Oh, right, mate. And that's what it's like walking around with Cherry. She just knows everybody.
I'm sure that people only listen to every other episode.
No, they don't.
And they only listen to Cherry's.
He always says this. It's
Crimepedia with Cherry.
No.
And then Morgan really small.
No.
Cherrypedia. Cherrypedia.
Cherrypedia.
Well,
I mean, how is
Ronnie
it that
said
you
something
got
nice to
into
me.
it? Oh yeah. I'm gonna get to all of those. Yeah, if
Okay.
anyone's got any questions, throw them in the chat now before we round up. But how did you get into all of this, Cherry? Because the victims' families get in touch with you for advice and on how to move forward with their cold cases and your advocacy for cold cases that go untouched and have no interest from law enforcement to reopen or pursue those cases is kind of another attribute to why Crimepedia is such a great podcast. So I just wondered, like, how?
I think I'm just really stubborn, and I think it's just I just don't take no for an answer. And I think some cases that I've been working on for years that I just will not give up on until I get an answer. And I think with me, I tend to take a lot of things to heart, and I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but there are cases that I'm still friends with victims' families. I still check in on them because I feel like they've trusted me enough with the information. They've trusted me enough with their story, and it's not just a story for me to tell people for entertainment. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their life, and I feel like I have a responsibility as somebody with a voice and somebody that is able to get to lots of ears. I think it's my responsibility to do good with that and to do my best to try and help alleviate some of the suffering that they're going through. I met some families. I was in Arkansas a couple of weeks ago, and I met some families there, and they were really like they told me their stories, and I said, right, send me the information, and they were like, really, you look at it. And I was like, well, I'll do whatever I can. I will do as much as I can. And there's some cases that I don't talk about all the time, but there's cases that from when we very first started that I'm still collecting information on, I'm still bugging the police about, and I'm sure that they've probably got my name on an email warning list somewhere because I don't stop and just keep going and going and going until they give me an answer.
Well, Cherry, you got spoiled. Your very first episode of Crimepedia, you got so spoiled because with Collier County, Florida, the sheriff's department gave you so much information.
They were amazing. Collier County, I must say, are my favorite police department in America ever because they were so good with trusting me with information and sending me documentation that I didn't um, abuse that trust. I will not put out information just purely for listenership or just purely for sensationalism. If a police officer comes to me and says, I've got this information, it's between us, but this will help you, it will stay between us, and I won't say anything to anybody. And I'm very, very good at keeping secrets. So that for me, I'm trying to build a trust between kind of law enforcement agencies and podcasters in general. And this is something that I'm working on separately, is that building this kind of reputation that we aren't all journalists. We aren't all there to get this great story out. We want to help solve these cases. We want to even if it meant that my name wasn't mentioned at all, I would still work and I would still give them all the information I've got, even if there was no recognition for me, because that's not what we do it for. We don't do it for recognition. I want that mum or that sister or that husband to know what happened, to have that
Yeah.
peace, and to have, it's not going to give them, we always say it gives them closure. It doesn't give you complete closure, but it helps with you with an understanding, and it just helps. And so a lot of the people that we work with, the parents will say, I just want to know. I just need to know. And so then that's what we do.
Cherry should have been doing this for years, but she just needed a platform. So I'm very happy to have started this with her and given her the platform to do what she loves. And she does an absolutely amazing job.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
I agree. And I'm so excited for next weekend. Anybody that's watching, I have 2 weekend tickets to give away for CrimeCon. I don't know how I'm going to do the draw because I need to give them away to people that can actually make the event. And I understand that a lot of the listeners are not in the UK. So I'm hoping that I find the right home for those. But you can donate to be entered into the raffle. and there's a chance for somebody to win 2 weekend tickets to CrimeCon. We will be there. You are both doing a live panel. Talk to us about
We
what
are.
that panel involves.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is another case that I've been working on for years. So this is a case of a guy called Stuart Lubbock. If you're not from the UK, you probably won't recognise that name. Stuart Lubbock was a young man who went to a party in the home of I would say a superstar, a British superstar, really. He was a household name, and Stuart ended up at this party. Unfortunately, at the end of the night of this party, Stuart was found floating in the swimming pool. The police were called, the ambulance were called, they took Stuart off to hospital, but the case was immediately thought of as a drowning, just an accidental drowning, because they'd all been drinking, there'd been drugs at the property, and it was immediately thought that Stuart had had an accident and drowned in the pool. However, when he had his post-mortem, he was found to have horrific internal anal injuries. But nobody at the party, the other 8 guests at the party, have no idea what happened to him at all. Their statements are all very different. Their timeline of events are all very different, and nothing actually adds up. And so we covered this case a couple of years ago, and my focus is Stuart. My focus isn't the person whose house he sort of met this untimely incident at. My focus is Stuart. What happened? There were 9 people at that party. What's their life? Those 8 people, if not more, know exactly what happened that night. He didn't sustain those injuries on his own. They weren't accidental injuries. We have 4 post-mortems, 2 forensic post-mortems, and 2 other post-mortems that give us a detailed look at what the injuries Stuart had. And so basically at CrimeCon, we're going to be going through the facts of the case. So not the rumours, not the information that is out there on Twitter and TikTok. We're going to go through the actual facts and put things together in what happened, who it happened to, where it happened, how it happened, why it happened. And that's what we're going to be going through. We've got Sue Homan, who is Stuart's ex-wife. She's going to be joining us on stage, and we're going to go through all the facts. And there's so much paperwork on that case. It is unbelievable.
That is going to be a very, very special session. I hope I can make it. I don't know how it looks in terms of the talk
you can make it.
We are.
You can make
we're like
it.
one of the first. Yeah, we're one of the first
That's
sessions on Saturday morning.
Oh, you are. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hope
It's
that I can be there. That would be great.
Oh yeah, we're going against Peter Falding.
Yeah, who wants to listen to him anyway?
No, he just jumps in water.
Yeah, I think that when I do my talk with John Atack, it's Shahom's doing a panel, so we'll have to wait.
I'll be at
see.
yours. I'll be at yours.
I got an email today to say how many seats? 150 seats.
250.
250. Yeah, 250.
Well, that's a bit stressful, isn't it?
Well, no, because
you'll be great.
Yours was standing room only last time, so everyone's
but if you can't expect that to happen again. You can't expect that to happen again. I'm really looking forward to it.
Did you get AC last year at yours, or were you post AC going out? No AC.
I don't remember there being any air conditioning from the beginning.
No.
That's right. Oh, that's right. Yeah.
No, there was nothing.
Yeah.
It was a great time, though.
If you do miss us in the morning, you can then see us at 5:15 Saturday evening during Pints with Podcasters.
I'm not going to be able to drink pints. That's not happening.
You can have wine or whatever.
We'll swap with you, Cherry, because I'm a good pint drinker.
You can do the pint drinking on my behalf.
Okay.
Because Ali and Bob did say we could drink pints of wine, and that's never going to happen.
Just bring him a box of wine for yourself.
I don't know if he's still here in the chat, but there's another podcaster, Ryan Hernandez, who has his own podcast called the Truth That Heals podcast, and he's coming all the way over from America to spend the weekend with us, and I'm really, really excited to introduce him to everybody. He's such a warm warm and loving person. There's a couple of other special people who are going to be at the event as well that I'm really looking forward to introducing people to. And
It's always good to make new friends. It's always
it
good.
is,
CrimeCon
it's
friends are lifelong friends.
it's a warm and welcoming environment, and it's strange because sometimes there's a competitive element in the field of content creation. Typically when people are doing the same type of things, so you would expect there to be that with cult podcasting. Sometimes there is as well, but most of the time it's just as Sarah Ferris would say, who you can also meet next weekend, a rising tide floats all boats. So why not all help each other with we were all swapping any trade secrets or tips and tricks that we had last year, and that was the first time that I'd ever experienced that, and it was really, really special. Not to mention the advocacy and conversations around ethics and ethical content creation that happens at CrimeCon, which I don't think you'd expect to happen, especially going by what people might see from the American CrimeCon, which feels, at least on paper, very different to the experience that I had last year.
It's like the Disney World of true crime is really strange, you know?
It's for me, being a British podcaster and experiencing CrimeCon in America after the British one, there is a big difference. There is a big difference. I mean, obviously both of them are victim focused. Both of them are trying to do good things, and they've done amazing things. You know, there are amazing content creators in America. But I found that we're in Britain, maybe it's just the way we are with each other. I found that we all tend to be a bit more, I don't know, just a bit more like a family. It just felt a bit more like a family, you know. And
you can't say things like that, Cherry. That's a bit culty.
It is. We have got our own cult, but it's a nice cult, if there is such a thing. It's a friendly one.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about this place is that you can just leave if you want to.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the big differences. So before we finish up today, I'm wondering if the chat has any questions for Cherry and Morgan, and also for Cherry and Morgan to just tell everyone where they can find your podcast.
Everywhere.
Anywhere.
No. Wherever you listen to your podcast, you'll find us. Just look up Crimepedia. You can follow us on all of our socials.
If you want a quick answer, you're probably better off on Instagram, because we're both a lot quicker on Instagram than we are like Facebook. I'm trying to get better on Facebook.
I'm so bad at Facebook.
I'm a lot quicker on Instagram. So if you want an answer quickly, that's the way to get hold of us.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, I appreciate both of you very much. I'm so excited to see you both next week.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Morgan's going to be there early on the Friday.
Yes.
Have you been spotting cults everywhere since meeting Casey?
I message her a lot. I message her a lot with lots of different things. And we were talking about somebody the other day who has come out as being quite dodgy. And I messaged her. I was like, what? Hang on a minute. No, not him. And she's like, yep, very dodgy. So when Casey and I first were walking around London together, I wanted to go into the Scientology building, and she literally pulled me away. Because I was like, I want to go in and see what they say. And she's like, no, absolutely not. You stay out of there. Come with me. We ended up walking away. But she keeps me on the straight and narrow, because I'm probably one of those people that would be indoctrinated quite quickly.
Yeah, Cherry's like, let's go in and investigate. And
I want to have a personality test.
Next thing you know, she's like a level 15 Thetan. She's given up all her money.
If Cherry ever has the kind of money to reach those levels in Scientology, then we need to know some of her investment tips, I think.
But they're really nice. That's exactly the sort of thing I would say too. But they're really nice people. So yeah,
that's so
she
funny.
keeps me on the straight and narrow.
No, whenever I do watch a true or a cult documentary, I always think of Casey. I just watched the Hillsong one this past week, which I really enjoyed, and I oddly felt really bad for Carl Lentz, and it was really weird because I'm like,
he's been doing his homework.
I was like, yeah, this guy, like,
that's it. That's your compassion coming through, and that's your understanding
that's how they get you.
it's your understanding of coercion and being like, well, what has happened to this person for them to be doing what they are doing
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
And that's the big hurdle. I had to overcome that at the start of this at the start
Now
of this
you're a
podcast.
cynical old bird.
Oh no, now I just everything just it feels very culty.
Yes.
So we'll be at CrimeCon. You can go onto crimecon.co.uk, and I say this all the time. You can use the code CULT or Crimepedia to get 10% off of your tickets, but also you can donate to the GoFundMe, the fundraiser that I have on the go right now. The message,
Aw.
the fundraiser is linked to the top of the chat, and you can be entered into the draw to win some tickets to come and spend the weekend with me, Cherry, Morgan, a load of other amazing people, where we will be doing live panels ourselves, networking with people, having food, having drinks, socializing. The True Crime Awards are on the Friday.
Yeah, I want to just
So-
say good luck to you.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. I've got everything crossed for you. I'm hoping you're going to walk away
really
with some
hope
very, very
so.
well-deserved awards.
Yeah.
Morgan,
You're
you're coming to
amazing.
the awards.
No, I don't think he is. No, I don't think he is.
I'm gonna be asleep.
Yeah, he's going to be catch. You
Right.
don't want to.
So
You
I
don't
get
want.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to know
yeah.
what he's like
So-
when he hasn't had enough sleep.
I won't see either of you till the Friday afternoon evening. But by
Evening.
that point, I might be an award-winning
I know!
podcaster.
You
So
gotta
isn't that
text
really
me and tell
exciting?
me.
And maybe a little
I
drunk.
will. Yeah, maybe. I mean, they have wine on the tables, so
There you go.
I might be celebrating or drowning my sorrows. We'll have to wait and see.
Fingers crossed it's celebrating. I've got faith. Fingers crossed.
Thank you. Thank you both so much. I appreciate both of you, and I appreciate your work and your friendship, and I'm so excited to see you next weekend.
Thank you for
So
having
be
us.
safe and careful until then. And everybody go and check out Crimepedia podcast. And I thank you both so much. And Cherry, it's late, so you need to get to bed. And Morgan, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm gonna stay up and watch you. So yes, have a great evening. Well done for tonight. You've done an amazing job. We're really proud of you. So yeah, we'll see
Absolutely.
you next week.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Bye,
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 Casey.
bye.
See you later.
Bye,
Bye.
Terry. Bye, Morgan. Oh, that's so wonderful. Amazing. So we have our next panel coming with Nicola Ranson in 15 minutes time. I can see Nicola in the waiting room, all ready and prepared, nice and early, which we like to see. And I am going to play another cult news segment whilst I run to the bathroom. And I just wanted to